The interstellar bazaar of Velan Station was alive with sound and color. Bright lights flickered across rows of stalls where traders from dozens of worlds displayed their goods. Crystals humming with energy, fruits that glowed softly, fabrics that shifted color with every movement. The air was thick with a mix of scents, spices sharp as fire, oils smooth as honey, and the faint metallic tang of recycled station air. Ethan Cross stood in the middle of it all, a little overwhelmed. He was human, and humans were still new to the wider galaxy. Only 20 years had passed since Earth had made first contact. While governments argued over treaties and technology exchanges, ordinary people like Ethan were still adjusting to the strangeness of alien life. He had grown up fixing ships on Earth, and now he worked freelance, repairing engines, patching hulls, and trying to earn enough to keep his small vessel flying. For Ethan, the bazaar was both a wonder and a trap. It was easy to lose yourself here, to spend credits on things you didn't need. He had only come to buy spare parts for his ship. But as he wandered past food stalls and tool vendors, he found himself drifting toward a quieter corner of the market. Here, a small crowd had gathered before a stage. A sign above it read in 3 different languages. Companion contracts available. Ethan paused. He had heard of these auctions before. Across the galaxy, many species allowed individuals to volunteer as companions. The term was broad. Some became advisors, some worked as assistants, others simply traveled with those who paid for their contract. In theory, it was voluntary. The companions gained food, shelter, and safety in exchange for service. Still, Ethan always felt uneasy about the idea. It seemed too close to ownership. Curiosity pulled him closer. On the stage, a tall insectoid being with a shimmering carapace raised its voice, speaking through a translator. "Next on our list," the auctioneer announced, "is a rare offering indeed. One who has been waiting many years for a suitable contract. Step forward, Sarai of the Luthari." From behind a curtain, a figure appeared. She was tall and graceful, with silver-gray skin that seemed to shimmer faintly under the lights. Her eyes were large, luminous, and faintly violet. A long cloak covered most of her frame, but her posture was dignified, almost regal. Ethan noticed something strange. The crowd's reaction was muted. There were whispers, a few polite nods, but little excitement. Many buyers simply turned away, already discussing the next listing. The auctioneer tried to spark interest. The Luthari were once master navigators. They charted paths through unstable wormholes and guided fleets safely across uncharted regions. Their instincts for spatial anomalies are unmatched. Surely such talent is not to be wasted. Still no one bid. A heavy silence lingered. Ethan frowned. Why would such skill be ignored? He leaned closer to 2 alien traders whispering nearby. Their language was half clicks, half tones, but his translator caught the meaning. "Luthari are obsolete," one muttered. "Machines do the work now." "Unreliable too," said the other. "They cling to old traditions. Nobody needs them anymore." Ethan looked back at Sarai. She stood tall, but her eyes revealed the truth. Years of disappointment, of being paraded out and rejected. Her hands, long and elegant, clasped tightly together as if bracing for yet another refusal. The auctioneer's voice grew tired. "Starting price very low. Any takers?" Silence again. Ethan felt a strange tug in his chest. He hadn't come here for this. He didn't even believe in the idea of buying someone's service. But something about Sarai's expression stayed with him. She looked less like a product and more like a person waiting for someone to see her. Before he could think too hard, Ethan raised his hand. "I'll take her," he said. The crowd turned in surprise. A few aliens chuckled. A human buying a Luthari? It sounded absurd. But the auctioneer perked up immediately. "Excellent. Sold to the human traveler. Contract terms will be transferred." Within minutes, Ethan found himself signing digital documents. He read carefully. The contract did not make Sarai his property, at least not legally. It was more like a service bond. She agreed to accompany him for a set number of years, and he provided food, shelter, and safety. There was no clause demanding obedience beyond that. Still, the formality felt wrong. Ethan hesitated, but when he looked up, Sarai was watching him with quiet curiosity. The deal was sealed. When they stepped off the stage, Ethan turned to her. "I didn't really plan this," he admitted. "But I didn't like seeing you left there like that." Sarai tilted her head. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was low and melodic. "You did not purchase me out of need?" "No," Ethan said honestly. I guess I just thought, maybe you deserved better than standing on that stage forever. For a long moment, Sarai simply studied him. She seemed surprised, perhaps even skeptical. Humans are peculiar, she murmured. They walked together through the bazaar. Sarai moved with silent grace, though she drew curious looks from passers-by. Ethan bought the ship parts he had originally come for, but now his attention kept shifting to her. He wondered what her story was. Why had she been unsold for so long? When they finally reached his ship, a small but sturdy freighter, Ethan paused at the ramp. "This is home," he said with a shrug. "Not much, but it gets me where I need to go." Sarai stepped aboard without hesitation. Her eyes swept over the narrow corridors, the patched-up panels, the humming engine core. To Ethan's surprise, her expression softened, not with disappointment, but with something like relief. "It is warm," she said quietly. "Alive, machines, yes, but cared for by hands. I prefer this," Ethan blinked. "Most people complain about the mess." "Most people do not listen to the ship's voice," Sarai replied simply. Ethan chuckled. "I think I'm going to learn a lot from you." That night, as they set off from Velon Station, Ethan found himself glancing toward the passenger cabin where Sarai rested. He didn't know what lay ahead. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe it would complicate his life. But deep down, he felt something unusual. He had expected resentment or cold formality. Instead, Sarai seemed lighter, almost hopeful, and though Ethan couldn't explain why, he was glad he had raised his hand at that auction. For reasons he didn't yet understand, he suspected this was the start of something far greater than a contract. The ship, Starlight Voyager, drifted quietly through open space far from the noise of Velon Station. Its patched hull creaked faintly, a reminder of old repairs Ethan had made with his own hands. Inside, the lights glowed a warm amber, steady and calm. For Ethan, this ship was more than a machine, it was home. But now, for the first time in years, he was not alone. Sarai, the alien companion he had purchased on a sudden impulse, sat silently at the dining table. She had removed her heavy cloak, and Ethan could see more of her features. Her skin shimmered like polished stone, gray with a faint silver hue. Her hair was thin and pale, almost like strands of light. Her large violet eyes seemed to take in everything, the table, the walls, even the flickering light above them. Ethan placed 2 bowls of food on the table. It wasn't much, just a mix of grains and dried vegetables he kept for long journeys. "Not fancy," he said with a grin, "but it fills the stomach." Sarai studied the food carefully before lifting the spoon. She moved with slow precision, like someone handling something fragile. After a small taste, her expression softened. "Warm," she said. "It carries effort. Not empty." Ethan chuckled. That's one way to describe cooking. For a while they ate in silence. Ethan didn't want to press her with questions too quickly. He knew she had probably been through enough in those endless years of rejection at the auction. Still, his curiosity burned. Finally, he asked, "Sarai, why did no one want your contract? From what I heard, your people used to be famous." Sarai placed her spoon down gently. Her eyes lowered. "The Luthari guided fleets when the galaxy was young. We felt the currents of space. We could see paths others could not. But now," she paused, her voice quiet, "machines do the work. Computers chart faster, cheaper. To the galaxy, the Luthari are obsolete." Her words hung heavy in the small cabin. Ethan leaned back in his chair, frowning. "Obsolete? You saved lives. You shaped travel itself. That doesn't just vanish." Sarai gave a faint smile, though it did not reach her eyes. "The galaxy moves forward. Those who cannot keep up are left behind." Ethan wanted to argue, but he sensed it wasn't time. Instead, he simply said, "Well, for what it's worth, you're welcome here." Contract or not, something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe even disbelief. She nodded slowly, as if unsure how to respond. The next day, Sarai explored the ship. Ethan let her wander freely. He noticed she moved differently from him. While he clattered down halls, she glided as if each step was planned. She touched the walls gently, pausing at humming panels and flickering wires. At one point, Ethan found her in the engine room. She stood with her hand resting lightly on the reactor casing, eyes closed. "Everything all right?" he asked. "The ship hums," she said softly. "It is tired but loyal. You have treated it with care." Ethan laughed. "You make it sound alive." "Perhaps it is," she replied. "Every machine carries the spirit of its maker and the patience of its keeper." Ethan scratched the back of his neck, not sure what to say. To him, it was just hard work, fixing things with wrenches, patching leaks, sealing cracks. But the way Sarai spoke made it sound like something noble. As the days passed, Ethan noticed changes. Sarai began to relax. She joined him at meals without hesitation. She asked questions about Earth, about humans, about why he had chosen to live alone among the stars. One evening, she sat across from him and asked, "Why did you raise your hand at the auction?" Others turned away. "You could have done the same," Ethan shrugged. "I don't know. I just couldn't stand seeing you there. It didn't seem right." "Pity then?" she asked carefully. "No," Ethan said quickly. "Not pity. Respect, maybe. You deserved better." For a long moment, Sarai was silent. Then she gave a soft laugh, a sound like wind brushing against glass. "Humans are strange," Ethan grinned. "I'll take that as a compliment." Later, they traveled through a small star system. Ethan plotted a course with his nav computer, but Sarai leaned over the console. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the display. "This path is unwise," she said. "There is turbulence near the third planet. The machine does not sense it, but I can feel it." Ethan hesitated. The computer showed a safe route. But something in her voice carried certainty. Against his usual habit, he adjusted the course. Hours later, sensors picked up a sudden gravity surge near the third planet. A collapsed satellite core had destabilized the orbit, creating a dangerous pull. The computer had missed it, but Sarai had known. Ethan whistled. "You weren't kidding. You just saved us a lot of trouble." Sarai's lips curved faintly. "The Luthari way is not gone, even if the galaxy has forgotten." For the first time, Ethan saw pride in her eyes. Not loud, not boastful, just quiet pride, like a spark that had almost gone out but now burned again. That night, as they drifted in quiet space, Ethan found himself reflecting. He had expected Sarai to act formal, distant, maybe even resentful of being bought. Instead, she seemed to be coming alive. He wondered if it was because, for the first time in years, she was not treated like a tool. She was treated like a person. Days turned into a week. Sarai began to help with daily tasks. She repaired small systems with precision, guided the ship through minor hazards, and even learned how to cook human food with surprising skill. Ethan noticed she smiled more now, subtle, almost hidden, but real. One evening, as they watched a star field through the viewport, Sarai spoke softly. "When I stood on that stage, I thought I would never leave, that I would never be chosen." Ethan glanced at her. "And now?" Her eyes shone faintly in the starlight. "Now, I feel something I had forgotten. Purpose. Not because I must serve, but because I wish to." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest at her words. He didn't know what their journey would bring, but he knew one thing. Sarai was no burden. She was a gift. And slowly she was adjusting, not to servitude, but to freedom. By the end of the second week, the Starlight Voyager felt different. The ship seemed brighter, more alive. Or maybe it was just Ethan noticing the change in himself. Sarai had become more than a companion under contract. She was a partner, a voice he trusted, a presence that made the endless silence of space less lonely. And though he didn't say it aloud, Ethan knew. Buying Sarai had been the best choice he had ever made. The Starlight Voyager sailed quietly between stars, its patched hull carrying two unlikely travelers. For Ethan, every day with Sarai brought new surprises. She had settled into life on the ship with calm grace. She worked beside him, asked questions about humans, and sometimes even laughed at his clumsy jokes. But the galaxy was never quiet for long. Ethan had taken a job to deliver rare engine crystals to a small colony. The route looked simple, a straight path through a nebula called the Veil of Whispers. Traders often avoided it, but the computer calculated a safe corridor. If Ethan cut through, he could save 3 days of travel time and earn a bonus. Sitting at the navigation console, Ethan entered the course. The computer beeped in confirmation, glowing green. "See?" Ethan said. "Perfectly safe." Sarai stood beside him, her violet eyes focused on the display. Her brow furrowed slightly. "The machine cannot hear the song of this place," she said. Ethan blinked. "Song?" Sarai closed her eyes for a moment. "The veil shifts. Gravity eddies, magnetic storms, invisible traps. It does not remain the same from one year to the next. The corridor the computer sees may already be broken." Ethan hesitated. He trusted his nav computer. It had guided him across dozens of systems. But he remembered how Sarai had already proven herself, sensing danger near that third planet. She had been right then. Okay, Ethan said slowly. What do you suggest? Sarai placed her slender hand on the console. I will guide. Not with numbers, but with feeling. Trust me. Ethan let out a breath, then nodded. All right. Lead the way. The ship entered the nebula. At once the stars outside vanished, replaced by swirling clouds of blue and silver gas. Electric sparks danced in the mist, flashing like silent lightning. The ship's shields shimmered faintly as charged particles struck them. Ethan gripped the controls, eyes darting across the sensors. The readings were chaotic, numbers rising and falling without pattern. His jaw tightened. This place is a mess. Beside him, Sarai was calm. Her eyes were half closed, her breathing steady. She raised one hand, pointing slightly left. Turn here slowly. Ethan obeyed. The ship drifted to the left, and a moment later the sensors blared a warning. A sudden gravity well formed exactly where they would have been if they'd stayed on course. Ethan's eyes widened. You felt that before it happened, he said. Sarai gave a small nod. The veil whispers. Few listen. They continued deeper. Again and again Sarai gave quiet instructions, adjusting their path by small degrees, tilting the ship at just the right angle. Each time the sensors later revealed what she had avoided. Collapsing energy fields, unstable gravity pockets, currents of charged particles that could have torn the ship apart. Ethan's respect for her grew with every moment. His hands moved on the controls, but he knew he wasn't the pilot here. Sarai was. After hours of tense travel, they reached a pocket of calm. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaling hard. I think I lost 10 years off my life. Sarai tilted her head. You still have them. You lived. Ethan laughed tiredly. You really saved us back there. Without you, we'd be nothing but floating metal. Sarai's lips curved slightly. It is the way of the Luthari. The galaxy forgets, but the paths still sing to us. Ethan shook his head in amazement. I don't care what anyone else says. You're incredible. For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Sarai looked at him with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read, something between gratitude and disbelief. Finally, she looked away, her voice soft. You are the first to say so in many years. But their journey was not over. Halfway through the nebula, alarms blared. Ethan shot upright, scanning the sensors. A dark shape was moving toward them, hidden within the clouds. Pirates, Ethan muttered. A small raider ship emerged, sleek and sharp, painted black to blend with the nebula's shadows. Its weapons glowed faintly as it charged. A voice crackled through the comms. Freighter, shut down your engines and surrender your cargo. Resist and you will be destroyed. Ethan cursed under his breath. Of all the places to get ambushed. He glanced at Sarai. To his surprise, she didn't look afraid. She studied the nebula outside, then leaned toward him. We cannot fight them directly, but the veil will fight for us if we listen. Ethan frowned. You mean use the storms? She nodded. Yes, follow my lead. The pirate ship fired, but Ethan swerved hard left under Sarai's command. A bolt of plasma shot past, striking a cluster of charged gas. Instantly, the cloud exploded with a dazzling burst of light and energy. The pirate's sensors flickered, momentarily blinded. Now upward, Sarai instructed. Ethan pulled the ship upward into a dense patch of mist. The Starlight Voyager trembled, but Sarai's voice remained steady. Hold, wait for the surge. Now she timed it perfectly. A wave of magnetic energy rolled through the cloud, and the pursuing pirate ship was caught in it. Its engines sputtered, struggling against the invisible current. Ethan's heart pounded as he pushed the throttle. We're leaving them behind! But Sarai raised her hand sharply. Not yet. If we flee now, they will recover and chase. We must trap them. Her violet eyes glowed faintly in the dim cabin. She pointed ahead. There, the current is strong. If they follow, the veil will swallow them. Ethan steered toward the path she indicated. The pirate ship, still determined, managed to restart its engines and gave chase. Plasma fire streaked past the Voyager but missed. Ethan gritted his teeth, focusing on Sarai's instructions. Now turn, hard right, she commanded. Ethan obeyed. The Voyager veered sharply just in time. Behind them, the pirate ship entered the turbulent current. Gravity twisted violently, pulling the raider off course. Its hull shuddered, lights flickering. The last thing Ethan saw on the sensors was the raider spinning helplessly before vanishing into the storm. Silence filled the ship. Ethan let out a long breath. We actually did it. We beat them. Sarai's expression was calm, but there was a quiet fire in her eyes. The veil protects those who respect it. They did not. Ethan turned to her, a wide grin spreading across his face. Sarah, you're amazing. This time she didn't look away. Instead, she held his gaze, and for the first time she smiled fully. Hours later, they finally emerged from the nebula. The stars shone brightly again, clear and sharp after the endless mist. Ethan leaned back, exhausted but relieved. That was the hardest flight I've ever done, he admitted. But I've never felt safer with anyone guiding me. Sarai looked out at the stars. Long ago, fleets depended on us. Captains trusted us with their lives. I thought those days were gone forever. She paused, her voice soft. But perhaps they are not, Ethan smiled. Not as long as you're around. Sarai's eyes shimmered in the starlight. For years she had been dismissed, ignored, left unsold on a stage. But here, aboard a simple freighter with a human who treated her as more than a tool, she had found purpose again. And though the galaxy had forgotten the value of the Luthari, Sarai knew one thing: she was no longer forgotten. That night, as the ship drifted toward the colony, Ethan lay awake in his bunk. He kept replaying the events of the day, the storms, the pirates, Sarai's calm voice guiding him through chaos. He realized something important. Buying Sarai hadn't just changed her life, it had changed his too. The Starlight Voyager landed smoothly on the colony world of Eris 5, a quiet planet with rolling plains and a sky the color of soft copper. It was supposed to be a simple stop: unload the crystals, collect payment, and refuel. But word traveled faster than Ethan expected. By the time he and Sarai stepped down the ramp, curious faces were already waiting. Traders, pilots, and even a few officials stood in small groups, whispering and pointing at them. Ethan frowned. What's going on? Sarai walked calmly beside him, her silver-gray skin catching the afternoon light. She didn't answer, but her posture was straight, almost regal. Ethan realized what they were staring at. It wasn't him. It was her. The story had spread, a forgotten Luthari guiding a ship safely through the Veil of Whispers. Surviving pirates, outmaneuvering storms. In the galaxy's busy networks, tales like that grew quickly, and Sarai's name was on everyone's lips again. Inside the colony's main hall, the governor met them personally. He was a broad man with bright eyes and a polished uniform. Ethan Cross, welcome, he said warmly before turning his gaze to Sarai. His tone shifted, full of respect. And you must be Sarai of the Luthari. Your reputation has reached us already. Sarai inclined her head politely. I did only what was needed. The governor laughed. You guided a ship where no machine could. That is not small. You must understand, your skills are rare, almost lost. The galaxy needs people like you. Sarai said nothing, but her violet eyes glimmered faintly. That evening, as Ethan checked the ship's cargo bay, Sarai stood silently near the viewport, watching the planes outside. He joined her, leaning against the wall. You okay? He asked. Sarai's voice was quiet. They look at me as if I am something precious. But years ago, they looked away. Now they remember only because of what I did. Ethan crossed his arms. Maybe, but that doesn't change the fact you are valuable. You proved it. She turned to him slowly. And if others come offering me places, titles, wealth, what then? Ethan swallowed. He hadn't thought of that. Part of him wanted to say, stay with me, but he didn't want to trap her. He remembered how she had been forced to stand on that stage, waiting for someone to claim her. He couldn't do the same in another way. Instead, he said carefully, then you'll have a choice. Whatever you decide, it'll be yours, not anyone else's. Her eyes searched his face as if testing whether he meant it. Then she gave a slow nod. The offers began the next day. A wealthy merchant invited them to a grand home, filled with glowing sculptures and servants in fine robes. He offered Sarai a position as his chief navigator, promising a salary that could buy whole cities on lesser worlds. You would never know need again, the merchant said smoothly. Stay with this human if you wish, but he can give you only small things. I can give you greatness. Sarai listened politely but answered with simple words. Greatness without freedom is a gilded cage. The merchant's smile faded. Ethan had to hide his own grin. Later, a representative from a fleet approached. Their ships explored deep space, seeking new resources and trade routes. With your skills, the officer told Sarai, you could lead expeditions no one else dares attempt. Entire crews would owe their lives to you. You would restore the Luthari name to its old glory. Sarai's expression wavered at those words. Old glory. She had once dreamed of that long before she was forgotten. That night she sat alone on the ramp of the Voyager staring at the stars. Ethan found her there, her cloak wrapped around her shoulders. They offer me a chance to be what my people once were, she said softly. To return to respect, to be honored again. Ethan sat beside her. Do you want that? I do not know, she whispered. Part of me says yes. Another part. She hesitated, then looked at him. Another part feels at peace here. With you. Ethan's chest tightened, but he forced himself to stay calm. Whatever you choose, it should be for you. Not for them. And not for me. Her eyes softened. You would let me go even if it meant you were alone again? Yes, Ethan said quietly. Because you're not a contract. You're a person, and people deserve to choose their own path. Sarai's gaze lingered on him for a long time. Then she turned back to the stars. The next day more offers came, some sincere, others greedy. Ethan noticed how Sarai listened, but her answers grew shorter. It was as if she was testing each one against something unseen inside her. Finally, a delegation arrived from the Galactic Council itself. Their spokesperson, a tall crystalline being, bowed deeply before Sarai. The galaxy forgets nothing forever, the being said. We see now the Luthari remain strong. Return with us. Take your place among the navigators of old. Guide fleets, chart stars, restore your people's name. The room fell silent after the offer. Even Ethan felt the weight of it. This was no merchant, no fleet officer. This was power on a galactic scale. Sarai lowered her head, her hands clasped tightly before her. For a long time she did not speak. Then at last she answered. I am honored, she said softly. But my path is not yours to decide. The crystalline being tilted its head. Then whose? Sarai lifted her eyes, and they shone with quiet strength. Mine. That night Ethan prepared the ship for departure. He half expected Sarai to tell him she was leaving, that she had chosen glory, power, or wealth. His heart ached at the thought, but he reminded himself of his own promise. Her choice was hers. As he worked, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned and saw Sarai standing there, her cloak flowing gently, her violet eyes calm. You didn't tell me your decision, Ethan said carefully. I did not need to, she replied. I am still here, Ethan blinked. You mean, you're staying? Yes, she stepped closer, her voice steady. The galaxy offers me titles, wealth, recognition, but none of those bring peace. None of those bring joy. Here with you I am not forgotten. I am not a tool. I am simply myself. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to say 100 things, but only one came out. Sarai, I'm glad. For the first time since he had met her, Sarai's smile was open, unguarded, filled with quiet happiness. Then let us continue our journey, together. The next morning, the Starlight Voyager lifted off. The colony shrank below them, and the stars opened ahead. Ethan sat at the controls while Sarai stood beside him, her presence steady and calm. She had faced the galaxy's offers, power, glory, riches, and turned them all down. Not because they lacked value, but because she had finally found something greater. Her own choice, her own happiness. The Starlight Voyager sailed quietly through open space once again. Its patched hull reflected the glow of distant stars, and its engines hummed with steady rhythm. For Ethan, the ship had always been home, but now it felt different. Warmer, brighter. Because Sarai was still here. After all the offers of wealth, power, and status, she had chosen to remain at his side. Ethan still struggled to believe it. Any other person might have leapt at the chance to rise in galactic rank. But Sarai had looked at those grand promises and turned away. She had chosen freedom. She had chosen companionship. And though Ethan had promised himself not to influence her decision, deep down he was relieved. He could not imagine the ship without her anymore. The days passed in gentle rhythm. Ethan worked on repairs, cleaned filters, and checked cargo. Sarai joined him in almost every task, her movements graceful and precise. She learned quickly, her long fingers adapting to tools designed for human hands. Sometimes she teased him gently when he dropped a wrench or forgot a simple step. At meals, they shared stories. Ethan told her about Earth, its oceans, its forests, its endless skies. Sarai listened with quiet wonder. her violet eyes shining as he described sunsets over water and the sound of wind through trees. In return, Sarai spoke of the Luthari's past. She told of grand voyages across uncharted stars, when her people guided entire fleets through dangers no machine could understand. She described the pride of standing at the heart of a bridge, captains and crews depending on her voice. But she also spoke of the sorrow when machines replaced them, when her people faded from memory. Her voice would grow soft at those moments, and Ethan would simply sit with her, letting the silence carry what words could not. Yet each time, Sarai ended her stories with the same quiet phrase, and still, "I am here." One morning, Ethan found Sarai in the observation deck, standing before the wide viewport. The stars stretched endlessly, a river of light. "You've been quiet," Ethan said, stepping beside her. Sarai tilted her head. "I was thinking. For years I believed happiness was gone from me, that it belonged only to the past. But now," she paused, then looked at him. "Now I feel it again here with you." Ethan's chest warmed. "I'm glad. Really glad." For a long time, they simply stood there together watching the stars. No words were needed. Their next journey took them into an uncharted sector. Ethan had accepted a contract to deliver supplies to a mining outpost hidden on the edge of known space. The route was long and full of uncertainties. Normally, he would have felt uneasy about traveling so far without reliable charts, but with Sarai beside him, he felt strangely confident. As they entered the unknown, Sarai guided him once again. She read the subtle shifts in gravity, the faint patterns of light in the nebulae, the unseen currents of energy between stars. The computer lagged behind, confused by anomalies it couldn't explain, but Sarai's voice was calm and steady. "Turn here. Slow your engines. Wait. Now forward." Every instruction led them safely onward. Ethan trusted her completely now, his hands moving without hesitation as she directed. At one point, a sudden burst of radiation swept across their path. The sensors screamed, lights flashing red. But Sarai was already speaking. "Lower shields, tilt the ship. Let the wave pass around us." Ethan obeyed, even though it sounded dangerous. To his amazement, the radiation washed past without harm, sliding harmlessly across their angled hull. If they had resisted, the shields would have overloaded. Ethan whistled. "You saved us again." Sarai's eyes glimmered faintly. "This is what I was born to do, to walk the paths no one else can see. But I am glad to do it not for fleets, not for power, only for us." The mining outpost welcomed them with open arms. The supplies they brought were desperately needed, and the workers cheered their arrival. Ethan repaired damaged equipment while Sarai walked among the miners, listening to their stories. She spoke gently, offering small advice and comfort. To Ethan's surprise, the workers treated her not as a strange alien, but with respect and gratitude. One miner, a young woman, whispered to Ethan, "She carries herself like someone who belongs to the stars." Ethan smiled. "She does." When they departed, the miners gifted them with a rare crystal from deep inside the planet's crust. "For luck," they said. Sarai accepted it with a soft smile. As they traveled on, Ethan noticed a change in Sarai. She was no longer weighed down by the memory of rejection. Her steps were lighter, her smile more frequent. She laughed more often, even teasing him when he burned a meal or mistook one tool for another. One evening, as they sat in the dining area, Sarai spoke quietly. "Do you know why I stayed, Ethan?" He looked at her. "Because you wanted to?" "Yes," she said. "But more than that, because for the first time someone saw me not as a tool, not as a forgotten relic, but as a person. You gave me freedom, and with freedom came happiness." Ethan's throat tightened. He hadn't realized how much it meant to her. "I didn't do much," he said. "I just treated you the way anyone should." "That is what makes humans strange," Sarai replied with a faint smile. "You do not see it as great, but to me it is everything." One night, as the ship drifted near a quiet star, Ethan and Sarai stood together on the deck, watching the golden light reflect across the hull. "Where do you want to go next?" Ethan asked. Sarai's eyes sparkled. "Anywhere, everywhere. The galaxy is wide and I wish to see it all, with you." Ethan grinned. "Then that's what we'll do." They stood side by side, the human and the Luthari, no longer bound by contracts or obligations, but by choice. And in that moment, Ethan realized the truth. Sarai was not just his companion. She was his partner. The days turned into weeks, and the Voyager traveled farther than Ethan had ever dared before. Together they faced storms of plasma, silent voids with no stars and mysterious ruins drifting in forgotten space. Each time Sarai's wisdom and Ethan's determination carried them through. In quiet moments, they shared simple joys, repairing the ship together, cooking meals side by side, laughing at clumsy mistakes, and watching countless sunrises over alien worlds. Happiness, they discovered, was not in wealth or glory, but in companionship, in the small moments that made each day brighter. One evening, as they rested after another long journey, Sarai spoke softly. "When I stood on that stage, I thought my story was ending, that I would fade away, forgotten forever. But now I know it was only the beginning." Ethan smiled. "And you're happy?" Sarai met his eyes, her smile gentle but certain. "Truly happy." The words carried no doubt, no hesitation. "Only truth," Ethan nodded. "Then so am I." The Starlight Voyager continued its journey, a small ship in the endless sea of stars. But within it, two travelers had found something greater than riches or titles. They had found each other. And in the quiet of the galaxy, far from the noise of stations and councils, a human and a Luthari sailed on, partners, explorers, and friends free together, truly happy.